Okay, I have in front of me one of the super decals, these large deluxe, super big. This is about 7.5 inches across. Well, not about, it is 7.5 inches in diameter. And what I have found as I've been testing these is that you can fire them on anything, but when I fire them on an opaque glass, an opaque background, you tend to get a little bit of a better firing off of it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a little, I don't know, bowl platter. I don't know, it might even be wall art. I haven't decided yet exactly what the utility of it's going to be. But I'm first need to start with cutting myself a circle. So I'm going to cut a white circle. I'm going to use my new circle cutter. This is the Circle Pro 24 that you'll see me use. This is from Creator's Brand, and so far I really like it. So I'm going to cut this down first to a smaller square, then I'm going to use my new circle cutter and get a circle. I'm only cutting one circle, and I'll explain more in just a little bit. Okay, let me explain my setup here. So I've got a separate kiln shelf that I'm building this on so that I can do it right here under the camera. I have my 3mm piece of Tecta that I've cut. I have a ring mold. This is a stainless steel mold from Bonnie Doon glass, and I've lined it with fiber paper that I have sprayed with zip so that I should get a nice clean release from this. And so I've got my base glass in here. Now I've got my decal under here, and as you can see, I can see a faint outline of the decal. I have to pull this out before I fire it. So I'm only doing this so that I can kind of see the shadow of the decal under here as I build this out. So my idea for this one, just to play really, is I have a, I've marked the center of my spot, but actually I don't really need that mark. So if I can, might take that off of there, but I've got a just a slice of beautiful well, let's see, this one was probably a mandala from Tabitha, but I'm going to put that right in the middle, and then I'm going to use some of Tabitha's confetti. So as you know, I'm kind of a fiend for her confetti. You've seen my unboxings. So I've broken up and busted up a bunch of different confetti colors, and I'm going to kind of pile some up in what would be the center here. Then I'm going to take another layer, and I'm going to do basically about a 1-inch margin, and this is going to be fiddly, and I'm going to have to play with it, and then I'm going to do another color around the outside, and then I'm just going to fire it and see what happens. So I think that confetti will be a nice background and kind of a cool effect to the decal when I'm ready to fire that on. So I'm going to go ahead and build this, and this might take me a while, and like I said, it's going to be a little fiddly, a little messy, but I'm just going to play here, and then we'll fire it and see what it looks like. All right, I don't know what to think about this. I don't know that I hate it. I don't know that I love it. I love all the confetti. I love this confetti. I love this confetti. I love this confetti. I love the piece that I used in the middle. I just don't know that I love it together. But, you know, what do I got to lose? So it actually fired quite nicely in my ring. It has generally a really nice edge, maybe just a slight bit of cold working that could be done. So I'm going to do that. I've got something else going in for a fire polish anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up this edge, put it back in for a fire polish. Fire polish schedule is too hot for the decal. So now I'm doing additional firings. Got to do a fire polish, then I will apply the decal, and then we'll fire it again, and I don't know, maybe I'll fall in love with it by the end. So let me go ahead and clean this up a little bit with some cold working and throw it back in. All right, so here's the piece. I put it back in the kiln for that fire polish. It, you know, pretty much looks the same. And so here's my decal. Let me cut this. You don't have to cut it out of the paper, but it's just pretty large and might not fit in my little dish here. So I just have a shallow dish with some water. I use distilled water when I can, just to make sure that I don't have any impurities. I think you could probably use tap. It depends on your hard water, what the mineral levels are in your water. But all you need to do now, this did not, I had already taken off the little wax paper. There's often a wax paper protector on these. Not every single one has it, but most of them do. And so you need to remove that first. Absolutely need to remove that first. And if on any of your decals that happens to stick a little bit, then just a little bit of white vinegar and rub it with your finger, and that should take that off. But you have to get all of that wax paper off, or tissuey paper off, before you soak your decal and fire it. So if you're having trouble getting it off because it seems a little stuck, then just use a little bit of white vinegar. Won't hurt the decal at all. And you know, your finger, just give it a little rub or something and it should come right off. So I'm soaking this in water, and I've got my blank here that's nice and clean, and just needs to soak a little bit longer. Now this is a water slide decal, so all you need to do is slide it on here. It's very important that when you take it off the paper, it's best if you just slide it right onto your glass instead of lifting it fully off your paper backing, because if you lift it, it could wrinkle and touch and whatnot. But more importantly, you could accidentally flip it upside down, which has happened before, and that does not fire well. So you really need to make sure that you keep this right side up as you're working on it. So what I'm doing here is I'm just picking it up and I'm starting to slide it off the paper, and I'm kind of grabbing on the edge here with one hand and just pulling it off. Water slide, see, it just slides right out. And then you have some time here now to work with this. And so what I like to do is just kind of get my finger wet, and I'm working to make sure that I've got as many of the large bubbles out of it as I can, large wrinkles out. And that's the beauty of sliding it on like that too, is that you tend to not get a lot of air that's trapped. Now there are some bubbles that are in here, so I'm just continuing to work them. You could use a squeegee or some other tool. I just like to use my fingers. So this large decal acts pretty much like my smaller ones. So if you've got familiarity with the smaller ones, this large one's going to do pretty much the same thing for you. Now what I am going to do is just center it, and there will be some wrinkles. It's going to be very hard. I don't know if you can see, it's going to be very hard to get rid of all the wrinkles. However, you can come back. So I'm going to let this dry for about half an hour. I'm going to come back and you can pop any significant bubbles that are in there. And so like right here, I've got this bubble that kind of won't come out. I keep trying to push him and I end up just pushing him around, and then he kind of comes back. So if he comes back again and remains there, then I can just pop that later before I put it into the kiln. So not the end of the world. Now I'm trying to look at this for centering. Oh, I was talking about the wrinkles. So there are going to be some wrinkles, but what's kind of neat about this decal is that the more it dries on, the more it kind of, I don't know, almost stretches and those wrinkles go away. So don't panic. If you've just put it on, and as long as you've gotten the large bubbles out, if there are still some wrinkles, don't panic. It's going to be fine. So trying to make sure that this is largely centered in my design. It doesn't look like my glass kind of did exactly as I wanted it to in terms of the placement. So, you know, I don't know if I'm going to love this in the end, but still, it's a good example for you to see kind of how this stuff works. So let me put this aside. I'm going to let it dry for 30 minutes or so, and then I'm going to come back and check it. Okay, so this has been drying for about 30 minutes, and I'm just going to get the leftover water. Yes, I'm using toilet paper. It's very absorbent, and a roll in your studio goes a long way. Okay, so now I've got the water. I'm actually just using the toilet paper now to kind of press out some additional wrinkles and bubbles. Let's see here. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So I do have an X-Acto knife. If you have any significant bubbles, you can just kind of, you know, score the membrane here and kind of pop it and squeeze that out. But actually, there's only a few wrinkles remaining. It needs a little bit more time to dry, so I'm going to give it another few minutes, 15-20 minutes or so, and come back. It looks like this side's a little more dry than the other side. I do have a fan running, so maybe this side was in the wind a little bit more, but I'm gonna go ahead and put this down again and let it continue to dry. All right, so it has dried some more. It has smoothed out quite nice. There are just a few more wrinkles, so I'm just kind of helping that along a little bit, but overall, very pleased with how that turned out. So you don't really have to worry too much about water spots, although if you want to clean this up quickly, you can, but I would just be very careful with it and not do anything too harsh to it. And this fires at, really, it depends on what kind of schedule you want. If you want more of a matte finish, and these are all food safe, by the way, so you could truly use this as a bowl. If you want it as a matte finish, then you fire it closer to 1125 or 1150 for about 15 minutes. If you want a glossier, shinier look to it, then you need to fire it at about 1225 for about 15 minutes, and that's a great slumping temperature too. So in this case, I'm going to turn this into a bowl. I'm just going to use a simple ball mold for this, and so I can do both of that at the same time, or that firing at once. So one firing to set the decal and to slump at the same time should be no problem. So I'm going to get this into the kiln and show you what it looks like when it comes out. And here it is. So it came out of the kiln, really nice slump, very pleased with this, and really loving the look of the decal. So it's nice and glossy. So in my kiln, I went 1225 for 15 minutes, and that gave me a perfect slump and a really nice firing on this decal all in one firing. So it worked well in my kiln. You have to know yours and how warm they are. But what I got with 1225, and I'm kind of zooming in here or trying to pick it up so you can see it, is a really deep, dark saturation of that black. You start going above 1250 or so, and this can tend to get transparent on you. So 1225 for me is the perfect temperature to keep the nice dark black. And I love it on all of this opal glass. So I think that particularly the large decal, you may end up with results that you like a little bit better on opal. I think it looks nice on transparent. And as I featured in some other videos though, sometimes that transparent, particularly if it's not a full saturation of color, can kind of start to come through that decal a little bit. It's hard to explain, but in this case, I've got nice solid coverage and I'm just loving it. So this came out of the ball mold from Bullseye, so it doesn't have a flat bottom on it. I just use these 3M, cabinet bumper kind of things. I'll put a couple there so that it doesn't rock, and it'll be a nice little finished piece. So I'm very happy with this. If you're interested in the decals, I have 10 new designs out, including this large 7.5-inch decal. You can find them at Fusing.shop. That's www.Fusing.shop. There is no .com. www.Fusing.shop. And for those of you overseas, I know that Tabitha sells some of my decals, but she only has the original 10, so she does not have the new designs or this big one yet. Maybe we'll work something out, but right now you can only find them on my website, www.Fusing.shop. Thanks everybody, catch you later, bye-bye.